Hi everyone. I don't imagine this is going to be pretty because that's not really the point of it. The point of it is to use Glasgow's Livable Neighbourhood uh, Toolkit, which was a document produced by the Scottish Government in June 2021, to introduce everyone in the country, the UK, but also all over the world, to the idea of the 20-minute neighbourhood, the livable neighbourhood, and just show you how it's going to be forced upon you, whether you like it or not. So here we have, let me just do a screen share. Bear with me. Glasgow's livable neighbourhood and share. Okay, here we go. Um, Now I have something in the way of my scrolling down. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. All right. All right. So here we go. Livable neighborhoods, and then there's a contents page. And what I'd like you to look at here, okay, so we have the executive summary and we have the project vision. So the executive summary references uh, active travel, localism, interesting. All of these words that sort of perhaps are, real words, but have never really been used before, are being introduced. So active travel, localism, and climate action has radically increased in the last few years. Um, so at the same time, there's been a rapid acceleration of innovation and implementation of new approaches to improve the quality of life in urban areas, which prioritize people moving on foot, by bicycle, and public transport. Okay, now the project vision says Glasgow's livable neighbourhoods will be accessible and healthy places that allow people of all ages and abilities out to play and socialise in their local area. And I draw your attention to the word allow because it's a very strange word to use. You could say facilitate, or you could say enable, or you could say provide people of all ages with places to play and socialize in their local area. So allow, I would be wary of that word personally. The forward says the global climate crisis. Now, this is going to be used as justification for rolling out these 20-minute neighborhoods all over the Western world. The global climate crisis, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic, has had a significant impact on local neighborhoods and town centres, highlighting the importance of local public space within our city and the need to reprioritise the balance of our streets. The Scottish Government has already made commitments to deliver a net zero society. Net zero, okay? I want you guys to just bear in mind Glasgow Airport, and I'll ask you at the end, and you let me know when you hear Glasgow Airport being referenced, okay? Um, Deliver a net zero society and green long-term investments that will transform our society and build a well-being economy. These policy shifts have highlighted the importance of neighbourhoods and place, with this being evident in the government's National Planning Framework 4 position statement, highlighting the 20-minute neighbourhood as the #1 opportunity for making our streets and neighbourhoods more livable. This is an approach where people can meet their daily needs within 20 minutes from their house via sustainable means. Okay, so that's the whole point. That's how it's packaged. And while there are, undoubtedly, benefits to living in this way, one has to think seriously when one finds oneself being herded along with the rest of the Western global population into the same behavior and the same discussion, which is being framed the same way. So, anyway, so uh, introduction to the toolkit, and basically it says that it's to place active travel and public transport as a first choice. And the publication of this toolkit is the first stage of a 10-year program that will focus on enabling communities and people of all abilities to improve their neighborhoods. Now down here it says, in its simplest form, and given Glasgow's commitment to being carbon neutral by 2030, we're looking to reduce the amount of space that road vehicles use and rebalance it with more people-based, environmentally conscious and community-inspired interventions. Intervention, that's a word that's getting a lot of use these days. Local town centres, so the themes are local town centres, everyday journeys, active travel, and streets for people. And what they're going to do is they're going to encourage everybody to use the same tool in order to analyse their own community. So by using the same tool to analyze your own community, what's happening is every single community is discussing their community using the same questions to get started. That's artificial. And things which come out of something which is artificial from the very beginning, and also not benignly or benevolently set in place. I mean, these things are artificial and they have been planned in order to steer a certain direction. So if the whole world and every single community in it is having the same conversation, then that's akin to some sort of homogenized Western world where you will no longer have any cultural experiences because everything is the same. The place standard tool is proposed as the method to allow communities to assess the quality of their neighbourhood and define the common issues that can be targeted by proposals and interventions. The place standard tool provides a simple framework to structure conversations about place. It allows people to think about the physical elements of a place, for example, its buildings, space, and transport links, as well as the social aspects, for example, whether people feel they have a say in decision making. The tool provides 14 prompts for discussion. Now, here you can go over to the place standard PDF. And if you just bear with me for a few seconds, I'll find it. Here you go. Right, what is the place standards tool? The place standard is a simple tool to structure a conversation about a place. Now, I don't know if you remember, but back in the other document, it said allows. So it's interesting that people change these words. It helps people, this one, it helps people to think. And in the other one, I can't remember what it says, but all of these little word changes are important because language is everything. So basically the place standard tool explains to you, it decides for you what's important: moving around, public transport, traffic and parking, streets and spaces, neutral space, play and recreation, facilities and service, work and local economy, housing and community, social interaction, identifying and belonging, feeling safe, care and maintenance, influence and sense of control. So anyway, so it identifies for you what's important, and then it tells you what questions to ask and how to score them and how to map it ultimately once you have done that. So when you're filling out your questionnaire so that your community can make decisions about your current state of play regarding your sort of place standard, you need to provide you some key data about yourself to help the organizer of the assessment, including your group ID if relevant. So anyway, there you go. You can see you're guided as to what to think about, and you are guided as to how to ask the questions and what's the how to score the answer of the questions. So that's all very organic, isn't it? So anyway, so off we go back to our wonderful 20-minute livable neighborhood document. Using the 20-minute neighborhood. So now again, it sort of tells you what is important in a neighborhood. So good not to have to think about that for yourself. And then we move on to, sorry, I do apologize. Then we move on to explaining or talking about the fact that, see, it didn't highlight that, and that's why I lost my place. The position statement prepared by the Scottish Government for the National Planning Framework, NPF4, says in relation to 20-minute neighbourhoods that we can plan our homes together with everyday local infrastructure, including schools, community centres, local shops and healthcare, to significantly reduce the need to travel. So if you reduce the need to travel, you got to think about the impacts of that. Once you don't need to travel any further than you do, and carbon is an issue, so you perhaps only have a certain number of carbon credits, it may become difficult to argue that you need to go anywhere other than your neighborhood. So it is, so let's move on. I think you get the kind of gist of it there. And then they give you a bunch of stories. I resent these personally because the stories, so this is Margaret, and on her way to the local shops, Margaret must cross roads with heavy traffic on seven occasions. Due to her age and fragility, the walk can take up to an hour. However, the route has no place for her to stop and take a rest. While blethering with one of her pals, and that's the bit that I resent. Do you know this is an official document? And yeah, it just smacks of condescension to me. Anyway, the important bit about this is at the meeting, Margaret and the others were made aware of the one of the ideas of the Livable Neighbourhoods Toolkit called filtered permeability, where the junctions can be turned into small parks, making them easier to cross while cutting down traffic within the neighborhood. So bear that in mind, filtered permeability, that's going to be a buzzword. And all that really means is that, either you can't go there on certain days, or you need a permit to go there, or you can't go there at all. So I want to go back to this NPF4 because the national planning strategy is really important. And I should have stayed there earlier. So here it is. It is the fourth national planning framework. And I have done you the favor of reading it all so that you don't have to read it yourselves. Now, you might want to call that what I sort of originally suggested was, shaping the conversation. And admittedly, that is what it is. However, it's unlikely that this is going to go global. So it's probably only going to shape the conversation of a very small number of people. So you can let me off with it. So here we go. In here, in this national planning framework, there are loads and loads of tidbits, and I don't want to show you the entire thing. So I'm going to sort of bring you back to me, and I'm going to hop over to the Word document where I pulled out all the things that I thought were interesting. And I am afraid that you're just going to have to listen to me read them. So, so it gives you key opportunities to achieve this national planning framework, and then it gives a whole bunch of what are they called? Key opportunities to achieve it. Okay, I'm not going to read you all 20 of them, 12 of them, sorry, because I think you'll get bored. But I mean, it's building 20-minute neighborhoods and introducing a stronger preference for reusing existing buildings, strengthening our support for development in town centres, expecting low and zero carbon design and energy efficiency. Anyway, at no point in here does it mention Glasgow Airport either. So oh, we're going to hop over again. I'm sorry. We're all over the place, but I want to show you what's going to happen to Glasgow Airport. So look, this is UK Fires, and UK Fires is sort of funded by all the usual suspects. And you've got not Oxford University and Cambridge and Anyway, they did a report called Absolute Zero, and here you can see UK Fires is a research program sponsored by the UK government aimed at aiming to support a 20% cut in the UK's true emissions by 2050 by placing resource efficiency at the heart of UK's future industrial strategy. Okay, we'll look at the executive summary. Right there on this sort of very early stage page, it says, the two big challenges we face with an all-electrical future are flying and shipping. Although there are lots of new ideas about electrical planes, they won't be operating at commercial scales within 30 years. So zero emissions means that for some period, we'll stop using aeroplanes. Now, when it says for some period, I'm going to ask you to bear that in mind, because later on in the 20-minute neighborhood document, it explains to you how, if you do this sort of stage thing where you introduce something and you say it's just for a little while, and then you sort of never unintroduce it, then that's pretty much the way to go. So, but we'll address that in a moment or two. So let's go back to the National Planning Framework thingy. Where are you? Zoom, you're there. It's just a sort of joy, isn't it? I am absolutely thrilling you, aren't I? Right, okay, but we'll get there, and it's worth doing, Okay, right, here we go. So NPF4 will embed the UN Sustainable Development Goals and Scotland's national outcomes. The place principle will be a key driver for ensuring that planning focuses on our places and is supported by a much wider range of interests to ensure that proposals and policies are delivered on the ground. So notice there that it will embed the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And if you want to find out how unrealistic those are, then there are lots of YouTube videos online that you can refer yourself to, and you figure out how poor your standard of living would have to be in order to meet them, or how they're not you can't meet them without your standard of living becoming incredibly poor. Anyway, outcomes for 2050. The long-term strategy will be driven by the overarching goal of addressing climate change. We must play our full part in tackling the global climate emergency by reducing greenhouse gas emissions in line with our legal targets. Many places are already vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and we must build future resilience by making better choices. This can also improve our places. We currently expect that NPF4 will focus on achieving 4 outcomes: net zero emissions, a well-being economy, resilient communities, better, greener places. Okay, and then I'm going to just pull out a bunch of quotes. A plan for net zero emissions. Our future places will be planned in a way that reduces the need to travel and builds in natural solutions. Apparently, we told them that we need a swift and decisive response to the global climate emergency at all levels: national, regional, local, and community. Our new spatial strategy will prioritize emissions reductions. Climate change will be the overarching priority for our spatial strategy. To achieve a net zero Scotland by 2045 and meet the interim emissions reduction targets of 75% by 2030 and 90% by 2040, an urgent and radical shift in our spatial plan and policies is required. Scotland's updated climate change plan will be published later this year, so I'm looking forward to that. Setting a course for achieving the targets in the Climate Change Emissions Reductions Target Scotland Act 2019. And NPF4 will take forward proposals and policies to support it. Okay. Our strategy will promote future patterns of development that embed the national transport strategy, sustainable travel hierarchy in decision-making. We will seek to promote high-quality walking, wheeling and cycling environments, public transport and shared transport options in preference to single-occupancy private use cars. This will help us to meet our climate change targets and transition towards healthier, more local, zero-carbon living and working.
A plan for resilient communities. We will focus on people and the quality of areas where we live. We will apply concepts such as 20-minute neighbourhoods across our cities, towns and rural areas so that the places where we live and work are more resilient and sustainable. We will introduce for the first time an infrastructure-first approach to neighbourhood planning, including natural networks and sustainable travel to ensure that we have fair access to the services that we need to help make our communities a great place to live. The word fair there is really interesting, isn't it? You could have, if something's fair, you know, it can be equally bad for all of you, or it can be equally good for all of you. So, you know, fair is on a sort of sliding scale. We will explore how a new emphasis on living locally could work in different parts of Scotland, from remote rural communities in our towns and cities, taking into account the needs of everyone in society so that equality is built in from the start. A wide range of facilities are required to support our well-being, including health services, transport, accommodation, and support for an aging population, education, energy networks, water and drainage, digital and then separate community centres, places of worship, cemeteries and crematoria, libraries, retail, including local healthier food outlets, markets, pubs, restaurants and cafes, banks, community growing space, green space, play and sports facilities, and public toilets. And I just think it's interesting there. It's happened a couple of times while reading this document. I mean, what does digital as a standalone word in that list mean? A wide range of facilities are required to support our well-being, including digital. So digital facilities. What digital facilities? I think it's just that they don't want to tell us about the digital facilities in any detail. So they sort of put in as little information about it as possible. Because, I mean, let's face it, who wants your LED streetlights to be spying on you 24/7 and updating your information to your digital ID, which is linked to your carbon credits and your central bank digital currency and your sort of social credit score. Anyway, by taking an infrastructure first approach to planning future development, we will be able to reduce the need to travel and minimize spend on additional transport infrastructure construction, contributing to an overall reduction in emissions from the transport sector. Potential policy changes. We're currently considering the following priority policy changes to support a spatial strategy for resilient communities. Promoting innovative place-based solutions to reflect a new approach to localism. Again, there's that word that I don't know if it's really a word, but it's a word now. Including 20-minute neighbourhoods, an infrastructure-first approach, and a move towards more mixed land uses to improve local areas. A stronger focus on place-based actions will also help us to adapt to long-term climate change. We will need to introduce a new policy to address play and playability. And I only stuck that in because, you know, there's another word, playability. Who's heard it before, Raviki? Not me. Reducing the need to travel unsustainably by embedding the sustainable travel and investment hierarchies into decisions about locations for change. There's a need for a managed approach to tourism, which helps to realize the significant potential for the sector whilst managing its impacts on quality of life. So what does that mean, a managed approach to tourism? If we've got no airport, how are they going to get here? You know, what with us being an island and all. So actually, you know what? They've pulled out so much, and you would be, you know, horrified if you read it. And to be honest, I really think that you do need to go and have a look at it. And I'll put the link in the description of the video. But I mean, it's everything that, you know, your friendly conspiracy theorist, anyway, whatever, has been telling you is going to happen: transition to a circular economy, and all of the electric vehicles, and that you're going to lose your private vehicles, and that, you know, ultimately you're going to be fenced into a sort of area where all your needs are met, and then you're going to have trouble getting yourself out of that area because everything will be based on basically having no footprint at all. Anyway, so there is a place that you can get back to them. The date has expired for the consultation hub, so that's not particularly handy, nor is you sticking your bum in my face, Rafiki. So anyway, let's hop back now that you know. Hold on, I don't know if you can see him. There's the culprit. So let's hop back over here, and in fact, I need first to hop back over here. And I need to screen share, and I need to put this Glasgow Liveable Neighbourhood back up. Okay, so here we go. We are back at the stories. Okay, and I told you Margaret has found out about livable neighborhoods, and she's had her junctions turned into given the filtered permeability treatment. And then there's talk of car-free zones around schools and the active travel strategy for the city, as well as working towards the city's target to be carbon neutral by 2030. Using local knowledge, and this is interesting, this is a steering thing. As people become enthusiastic about the potential for change in their area, it's important to help them to understand existing neighbourhood governance, and also to be made aware of which groups have been successful in achieving change. So the groups that have been successful are the groups who have gotten the money from the public-private partnerships, which are not really public-private partnerships, they're just private businesses, because ultimately the private arm of them is has the final say. That means that they're determining whether and on what criteria you get your funding, and that means that if you are not meeting their criteria, you won't get your funding. That means that you will try to meet their criteria, which means that they'll get a disproportionate say in how society develops. So as well as leading design and engagement processes, the Livable Neighbourhood Plan will guide individuals and communities towards local elected members, council officers, and other third sector organisations that can assist them in achieving their goals. So basically, we'll steer you all the way, and if you don't play the game, then you won't get any funding. Glasgow City Council have used GIS technology to create a user-friendly platform that provides the public with a visual display of its neighbourhood characteristics. The website overlays information held in layers over a map of the city. Each layer represents different neighbourhood information, ranging from bike rack locations to levels of child poverty. The information is there to be used as an aid to understanding the complexity of your neighbourhood. So they are offering that you can use their platform, and they're saying that they have all of this data on the city, and I wonder where they got that data. To assess, and oh, by the way, to use the GIS thing, it's free. So whenever something is free, you should be a little bit suspicious of it. And it's not really free, because it also will give you a way to sort of, as you can see here, make draw conclusions from your information, and they will take all that data, yeah, and sell it. Oh. Okay, to assess the quality of a place, the place standard tool can be used as a means to structure the discussions. Conversations can then begin to assess the neighbourhood through a series of focus topics. Now, there's nothing wrong with a series of focus topics, but the series of focus topics should surely be contrived by the individual community, you would have thought. Anyway, the tool can then help people to identify their priorities for their neighbourhood, as well as a means of recording improvement. The tool is simple and free to use. So there you go. It tells you that, you can record the improvement and it will take the data. Using current initiatives, the Livable Neighbourhoods approach will steer community groups towards the full range of resources that can assist them in meeting their aims. These will include funding opportunities and design support. The council will also advise on local and national policies that can support the community, as well as assist on more technical issues such as planning and building control. So basically, talk about what you want within the framework of what we're going to allow you, and then come to us for funding, and we will further refine what you can, what you can actually institute for you and your community. So there's lots and lots more pages. Managing change, though, there can be resistance to change within any neighborhood or community. However, the livable neighborhood approach is based on an understanding that where design process emphasizes genuine and constructive dialogue with communities at an early stage, this energy can be an asset in terms of creating quality outcomes that are bespoke to the place. Changes to streets and pavements can uncover strongly differing views on what is best for an area. Spending time thinking about how to manage these tensions may make the difference between success and failure. And so then it explains that a staged approach is the best way to go about it. Looking further afield, there is a significant body of evidence from cities nationally and internationally that a staged approach can ease community concerns around the pace of change, whilst at the same time demonstrating the effectiveness of the principles of the approach. This can allow a scheme to be trialed, refined, and proved before full implementation. So basically, you just tell everybody that you're trying it, and then you do it, and then you sort of never undo it. Creating a series of temporary events or installations is a great way to test ideas and bring the community together to talk about how to start making change. Flexible and short-term interventions allow spaces and places to be tested by creating temporary uses. This is known in the design community as tactical urbanism. Okay, so tactical urbanism. It doesn't sound benign because it's not. And the document goes on and on. Given the range of approaches available, many cities are implementing temporary or light versions of street interventions to trial them before undertaking full-scale capital works. Glasgow and other cities in Scotland have demonstrated this approach through the Spaces for People programme. And if you live in Glasgow, you know which areas were made pedestrianised during the COVID era. And they're just not going to unpedestrianize them, which is, it's fine if that's what people want. But, and all of this is fine if it's really what people want. But people need to discuss it in the context of, understanding that they want you to converse about it in a certain way. And why should you? Every culture, every community, you are, if you want to craft a 20-minute neighborhood, then it should be bespoke to your needs and have nothing to do with anybody else's goals. Certainly not ones that require everybody in the area to be, really, really poor, or to have their standard of living dropped really, really low in order to achieve those external targets. So this is a little conversation about parklets. Parklets basically replace parking spaces, and you can go to the council and say that you want to make this parking spaces outside your area a parklet, and I think that basically they'll give you those parking spaces and you get to do it. So then down here, this is one of the stories. So having read the Liveable Neighbourhood Toolkits, one of the parents suggests that they ask for the area around the school to be made a school car free zone. So that's something that they're also discussing. But once they normalize the idea, I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, well, actually, why not? We don't want so many cars around the school gates, and maybe that's fine. But what happens is the idea becomes you become used to the phenomenon, and then you're less discerning about whether you want to pursue it. So if we are going to introduce these zones, and zones is another word, by the way, but if we're going to introduce them around the schools, then we need to think, we need to be talking about it in the context of the realization that, that will then set a precedent for the future and whether people want that to be the case. There are some precedents on the website that could really assist her business. So this is talking about taking some car parking spaces in front of somebody's shop and replacing them with a parklet. that's what this lady who had a shop achieved. And I don't really have any problem with lowering curbs for people who have wheelchairs, you know, go for it. Business Improvement District, Kevin is invited to take part in a consultation with the City Council. I think Kevin is the one who's not that keen on having cycle lanes in front of his shop. However, in the end, having talked about it through the Livable Neighbourhoods thing, he's been convinced that it really only stops cars from using the neighbourhood as a rat run, which is a good thing. I don't really know what a rat run is, but rat race, rat run. Patty insists they go by bike. Johnny doesn't have one, so they go to the local transport hub, which is 10 minutes walk from the flat. They pick up a bike for Johnny, cycle to pick up beers and return the bike. There's that patronizing, condescending thing. They're off to pick up beers. Anyway, it was close to the train station, had car clubs, cargo bikes, and a bus stop. Johnny has sold his car as it's cheaper to be part of the car club. He now has his own bike, but often uses the cargo bikes at the hub for larger shopping trips. And then we've got a couple of people here. George isn't used to city centres having so much traffic and struggles to skate near his home. He hopes if more pocket parks and trees are planted, along with filtered permeability, there'll be more space in the city. Heather has been told about the government-focused 20-minute neighbourhood. And so her and her classmates are going to interact with their neighborhood and come up with ideas about how the community can be improved within that framework. And Sakina's brother loves walking, but the heavy traffic can startle him. So they tend just to take the bus. So the livable neighborhood could provide the opportunity to lower traffic through filtered permeability, one-way streets or cycle lanes. So the Livable Neighbourhoods plan is a citywide project that will be implemented over a number of years through a series of 6 phases. Each area of Glasgow will be reviewed to identify issues and opportunities for change. Now, if you've stayed with me all the way through this, then I am incredibly grateful to you, because I appreciate that it's not exactly, you know, thrilling listening, but what it is important. And these are the neighborhoods that your children will live in 2030. So that's 7 years' time. And if you don't get involved now and start talking about it and realize that it's all sculpted to deliver a particular outcome, then it is going to deliver that outcome. And if you don't know that much about what that outcome is or what it will look like, then really this is the time to get involved. And you can find Cindy Niles on Facebook, and you can, you know, catch up by learning from her, or Julianne Romanello. You can catch up from learning from her. You can always come and find me. I'm a lesser breed, but I do my best. And we have a lovely community online, by the way, us guys, and none of us have any guided, structured conversations as per the government. We're lucky if we can actually have our conversations, because they're also filled with you know, really uncontroversial information that we're not allowed to talk about anymore. Anyway, right, okay, if you've stayed with me this far, I am deeply indebted to you, and I appreciate it so much. And really, please, you know, try to get other people to understand what's going on. If there's any chunks of this video that you can take out and you can use that might help that process, then by all means do. And so much love to all of you. Bye.